What's up everyone? It's Alex. Best Beginner Motorcycles part, what are we on? 4 now? Is this 4? I think it's 4. It's finally time for me to talk about cruisers for beginners. I've been putting this one off because this one's a little bit trickier. This is a dangerous video to make because I'm going to catch a lot of hatred for it every time I make a video about cruisers. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people out there that are fanboys one direction or the other. We're not here to do any of that. We're not here to be fanboys. We're just here to talk about some, and I mean some, recommendations for great beginner cruisers from my point of view, from my experience. There will be lots of other bikes out there that are great options that I will not mention. There's not enough time for it, but these are just going to be some recommendations for beginner cruisers, okay? Updated version. I've done a video like this before. I'm going to update it. Some of the bikes I recommended before, I think there are better options for now, okay? All that being said, if you're looking at a beginner motorcycle and you're kind of into cruisers, I actually would recommend that you get a standard instead. There are some really good options in smaller standard motorcycles with smaller motors on them that I think are a better option to learn on and will keep you happier longer than some of the smallest cruisers. That video will be coming after this one, so you can watch this, watch the standards for beginners video too after this. But if you just like cruisers, you don't want a standard, you're just absolutely into cruisers, here are my recommendations for best beginner cruisers in my opinion. Starting off, you can't make a beginner cruiser video without talking about Honda Rebels, okay? I do not recommend the Rebel 250 anymore though. Long running motorcycle, proven track record, they're everywhere, they're cheap, I get it, and they're almost indestructible, but at this point, the newer Rebels, the 300, 500 series Rebels that they put out, those are fuel injected. They're a little bit more motor to them. More importantly, they're not as cramped. The original Rebel 250 was a great idea, great beginner bike, great for MSF courses and everything, but it is very small. For everyone except the smallest riders, it's usually so small and feels so cramped that I think it actually inhibits your learning. Like, the handlebars are so close to you, the pegs are so high up that unless you're very short, it actually is kind of hard to handle the thing because it's actually just that physically small. So small and light is good in a beginner motorcycle, but the Rebel 250 I think is actually too small for most people. So at this point, I would much more highly recommend just doing a Rebel 300 or Rebel 500. They're fuel injected, they're still small and light, done plenty of them, ridden plenty of them. They're as easy as it gets really. They're very friendly, very mild, very easy motorcycles. You should be able to find them inexpensive used all over the place at this point. So starting out, look at and go sit on Rebel 300, 500. That being said, any bike I recommend, go look at them and sit on them. Don't just take my word for it. Go look at them and sit on them. If they don't feel comfortable to you, move on to a different motorcycle. Next up, I'm still actually going to really recommend, if you can find it, a Kawasaki Vulcan 500. They don't make them anymore. They stopped making them 2009, 2010, somewhere around in there. But they still should be fairly plentiful out there. They made them for like 20, 25 years or something. They made them for a really long time. Tough, proven motorcycle built off of the Ninja 500 motor. It's a 500 parallel twin. It's a very friendly motor. It's a 6-speed transmission. They're on the small and light side, but not so small and light like the Rebel 250 where it's a problem that it's so small and light. Between having that 500cc liquid-cooled motor and a 6-speed transmission, it's a very easy bike to get used to. It's not going to punish you too bad for your mistakes off the bottom, but it's actually got enough motor, enough transmission that it can actually do highway speeds really nice. It can keep you happy for a long time. I've known people that get those for a first bike and then end up doing like cool cafe projects and stuff off of them. So if you can find one, a Kawasaki Vulcan 500, I've recommended it before. I still think that that is a fantastic option for a beginner cruiser. And if you find one out there used, it should be cheap as crap because like I said, they haven't made them now for 10 plus years is when they stopped making them, but they made them so long, if you can find them used, they should be really cheap and they're really hard to tear up, okay? So if you can find one, check out a Kawasaki Vulcan 500. Next up on the list, this one breaks my engine requirements just a little bit because it's a 650, but I still think that a Yamaha VStar 650 is one of the better beginner cruisers you can get. It's a little on the heavier side, but it's really low to the ground. It's a 650cc motor, V-twin, but it's a very low-powered 650cc motor. Like, it does not put out much horsepower at all, and it's hooked up to a drive shaft. So it's a very gentle 650cc motor, and with the drive shaft and everything, you're really not going to ever have to worry about anything in your drive line, honestly. They're really hard to tear up. They made them for a really, really long time. They should be everywhere used. You should be able to get them really, 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 really cheap. It's probably the heaviest bike that I'm going to mention, but even being a 650cc motor, it's such a tame 650, and it's so low to the ground that I think the weight is manageable for most people, and I think it's a really, really good recommendation still for a starter cruiser. I mean, it breaks my engine requirements or my engine recommendations a little bit, but I think it's a really, really good option. If you're a little big for a Rebel or even a Vulcan 500, or you can't find one of those for a good price used, see if you can find a VStar 650. Yamaha VStar 650, I've recommended it before. That bike is still going to stay, okay? If you are a Harley fan, you can do a Harley Street. It's not really a cruiser to me. It's more in the standard category, so I should have put it on the standard video, but I'm just going to mention, if you just happen to be a Harley fanatic, you just want a Harley, you just got to have a Harley, you can do a Harley Street. I personally have not had great luck with those. I'm sure there's going to be some of you out there that have had awesome luck with them. Some of you think it's the greatest motorcycle ever. I'm not saying anything negative about the Street in general. I just have not had very good luck with them. They haven't held their value very well used. I haven't had good experiences when I've ridden or seen used ones. I'm not really going to recommend it. If you're a Harley fan, you just want the easiest Harley to get into at this point, it's going to be a Harley Street. I would actually say if you're just a Harley fan, you got to have a Harley. That's just what you have to have. Just do a Sportster 883. It breaks my engine requirements again, but they've made it for so long. It's a proven platform. It is, until the Street came out, it was recognized as your entry into the Harley world. It's a low-powered 883 motor, V-twin. It's not that hard to get used to. Again, it's on the heavier side for a beginner bike. I think most of your 883s feel a little bit top-heavy to most people. You can get the lower variants. 883s are everywhere used. They're going to be inexpensive. If you want to go the Harley route, I would recommend an 883 before I would recommend a Harley Street, just because I haven't had personally good experiences with Harley Street models. Last thing I'm going to put out there, and it breaks my engine requirements again, but again, it's a really tame motor. Suzuki Boulevard C50s. I'm going to recommend it again. It's a little bit bigger. It's actually not that heavy of a motorcycle for the size of it. Suzuki did a pretty good job when they made it of making it light for the size. 800cc motor, V-twin, but it is a very tame 800cc motor. 5-speed transmission, drive shaft. It's really, 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 really hard to tear the thing up. They made them for a really, really long time. You should find them everywhere, inexpensive used. If you're a little big for a VStar 650 or a Rebel or the Vulcan 500, go find a C50. It's an 800cc motor, but it is a very underpowered 800cc motor. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying for beginners and medium level, that's a good thing. It's a big enough bike. It'll keep you happy for a while. It's not that hard to get used to. If you're real short, maybe not, because the seat is kind of wide, so it pushes your legs out and feels a little bit taller. But the last bike on the list has got to be that. For once, I'm not recommending most of the 250cc cruisers, just because those bikes are all going to be like your Rebel 250, your GZ 250, things like that. Yes, they're very easy. Yes, they're very small and very light, but most of those bikes are just so small, and I've seen it time and time again in safety courses. Most of those bikes are just so small that most people feel so cramped that they're not comfortable on it, so they don't get confidence and they don't learn the skills that they need. So I'm recommending just slightly bigger to mid-size cruisers that are on the light side, that don't have a lot of power, that are still going to be really easy, but you're not going to feel so cramped on. So for once, I'm not going to recommend the 250s and the cruisers. With sport bikes, I recommend 250s and 300s all day long because they're just faster and lighter, and that's just the nature of the beast. With the cruisers, you can get motors more in that mid-size range that are kind of underpowered, low horsepower motors for their size that are going to be just fine. Tons and tons of people I've had over the years end up with a 650 or an 800 cruiser to start out with and are great, just plenty fine. Take the MSF course first. Very valuable information in that. If you're in the US, take the Motorcycle Safety Foundation's courses. You're going to learn a lot of good stuff. You're going to get cheaper insurance. Can't recommend that enough. Whatever you do, be safe, get comfortable with it, learn your skills before you get out there on open highways and stuff. Be safe. Hope this helped a little bit. Standards are coming next. I highly recommend standards for a first motorcycle. There are some fantastic standard bikes in the first motorcycle category. I'm Alex, guys. Peace.